Welcome back to Love, Life, and Legacy, the podcast dedicated to navigating these hypersexualized times. And in today's episode, Benjy and I unpack your relationship with your ideals. He gives a great testimony of a situation in which he had an anxiety attack very recently and how he dealt with it and how what he did helped him to get back in alignment with his ideals much more quickly than what we would normally do when we're not allowing ourselves to live in accordance with the high noon way, which is the 5 virtues, which is asking for grace, which is talking to people through accountability. All these things, they come up. It's a very practical example of how being out of alignment with our ideals, even for a short while, can really knock us off of the course that we would like to be on in our lives and can give us anxiety and stress, health issues, all this stuff. So it's a great conversation. It's one worthy of your time, I assure you. And if not, I will give you your time back. I'm working on a time machine. Actually, that comes out in this episode as well. Time machines, patent pending. So please, without further ado, join us in our conversation about relationships with your ideals and how important it is to build a healthy, functional relationship with your ideals. Let's go. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, everybody, to the show, everybody. Welcome back.
What's good? What's good, Andrew?
What is good? Everything is good. That's good. And everything that's bad sucks. Quote me. Put that on a sticker. Life is good, man. I mean, it's a new year. It's 2024. It's the future. I think that we're living in the future to such an extent that movies aren't even usually set for this date. The future in the past was like 2015 and nothing existed except for maybe the Terminator or stuff like that was like a few years in the. But we're definitely in the future, man. So I just like everything is exciting because we're in the future, Doc. We're in the future. Yes. Can I ask you a question? Because I don't know if it's just me, if I've played this game, or if this is common. And I guess this is my informal survey where there's 2 of us. So if you do it, then it's got to be common. When I'm sick, like really sick, I start to envision what my life will be like in the future when I'm not sick. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait for this when I'm not sick. And I always wonder if I could just, like when I was younger, I would say when I was younger, I would try to wish that I could skip the sickness and just go to the future when I'm happy. But what if today's that day? What if I was 2 seconds ago, 7 years old, sick in bed, vomiting, and now I've just transformed into like this when I'm 107 years old or however old I am? Like imagine that was it. That I teleported or whatever to now. Like yeah. My point is today could be the day that I've been hoping for because I'm not sick. We're alive in the future. Like what if this is it? What if this is the thing that we've been waiting for and we just didn't know? Because we were waiting for something even better. That's the human predicament, is like you could wish for something and get it and then you don't even stop long enough to appreciate it because now you're already wishing for something else. You know what I mean? Yeah, I got a Ferrari, but I want a plane too. That's the human condition right now because of TikTok.
That's the exact situation I'm in right now, by the way, Andrew. You read my mind. You're from the future.
I know. I'm just
yes, I know exactly what that's like, Andrew. I think there's a kind of a retroactive aspect that I implement for me. I imagine sometimes that I wake up because in the future, it's quite likely that we will have time travel. We don't know. You know, when I'm a 90-year-old man, a 100-year-old man, it's likely that we will have time travel. And sometimes I think that if we did, it would make sense that I would visit myself from the future to give to impart some wisdom. And so sometimes I wake up and go downstairs and I imagine me sitting at the kitchen table just to have perspective of what that person would feel like to be in this moment with my young kids, my wife who is healthy and not dead, right? Which I imagine she might be in the future. And just the gratitude that old man would give anything to be here in this moment. And that just puts perspective on the current moment for me. So it's similar, but it's just
real.
Kind of Yeah, it's real. So it's kind of real because it's like, why not? There might be time travel, and it'll probably be very expensive, and you could probably not do it very often, right? If it did exist in the future. And so I imagine my old self giving all of his life belongings and money and everything to go on this time travel just to visit
Yeah.
me. And I think about like, what would he want to tell me, and what would I ask him? And then it just gives perspective. I do this a lot, actually, just to let you into my
Sure.
mind a little bit. Yeah.
No, these are good exercises to run, regardless of your perspective, everybody, about time travel. Because I feel like I bought into that wholeheartedly thanks to Back to the Future. It came out when I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
And when the hoverboards came out, I'm like, this is obviously going to happen in my lifetime. And I'm still waiting for the hoverboard, by the way. But regardless of the actual time travel of your physical matter, if you believe in spirit, then time travel is available 24/7 through prayer. You can go to the past, you can revisit the past and feel like I used to do this with historical figures in the Bible, where I'd do a condition where I'd try to feel what they felt, because it's easy to judge them. Especially the divine principle sometimes frames people as having failed. So you're like, oh, you failure, Moses, Abraham, what were you thinking? This kind of stuff. But if you really put yourself in their shoes, and True Father helped a lot actually with people like Moses or like Noah. He like, what is it like every day to go to work on a giant boat? You're not getting paid. Who's making you lunch? Who are you getting help? Like and everybody's calling you an idiot. You're like, hey buddy, how's that boat going on top of the mountain for decades and decades and decades? Like, we can't even take a little bit of persecution online. If somebody makes fun of us, we're like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. But imagine like walking to work to build a ship that somehow you feel God told you to make on top of a mountain, and everybody's like, there's old crazy Noah again, you know? So to relate to these people is your ability to connect to the essence of their story, and that you can go to the past. But like you're saying, in the future, I've been stopping more because we have 3 sons and our youngest is now like 5, and I can see that he's growing and developing. Like they're all not chubby anymore, and so I can see, man, we're never gonna have we're not having any more kids, and I can see I'm not gonna have any chubby kids anymore. Like, that's such a cute phase in the first 2-3 years when they have these big bellies and big cheeks, and now they're all kind of getting skinny, and which is cute. And I don't want to change what exists, but I can see myself stopping and appreciating every phase that he goes through more, because it's the last time that I'm going to experience it. So him learning how to read, him, like, I don't know, making mistakes and all this stuff. And that's my appreciation for the future more. Like, going to the future and be like, you're going to regret it if you don't just stop and appreciate these. And it's a tenderness that can only exist if you stop being distracted. That's why this, I think, matters to our conversation with you at High Noon, is when you stop distracting yourself with social media, with porn, with escaping life, and you can just be present to all the preciousness that exists around you at all time, your future self is just crying with gratitude. I'm like, thank you for stopping long enough to appreciate life, because that's the whole point. The end of your life, you're not like, man, I really scrolled Instagram. I'm so glad I used my life for that. That is all just the distraction from the reality. Is like, man, I really lived. And as much as I don't like some movies that Pixar makes, the movie Soul, at the end of the movie, was all about that 23, the main character, her spark was just enjoying life, that she was able to appreciate the small moments of life, and that was her spark. That was what got her the joy that, like, helped her to, anyway, I don't know if you saw the movie, but at the end of it, it was really just exalting the act of stopping and appreciating the little things, because that's the richness, and that's the spice of life that makes everything worthwhile, is looking around you, looking at your couch. If you're in a room right now and you're listening, like, looking at your bed, looking at your couch, and like, I got a couch, I got a bed, you know? My family has lived without a couch. We haven't owned a couch since 2015. Isn't that crazy? So when I see couches, like now we're renting somebody else's house for a bunch of months, and they have a couch. I'm like, man, we got a couch, yo. And it sounds so stupid because it's like it's a couch, but like, do you know how hard it is? For the past maybe 7 years of our life, whenever we watch a movie as a family, we watch it on our bellies on a bed, staring at my laptop. That's how we've been watching movies for years now. And so sitting on a couch watching a movie on a TV in a house that we rent is like a novelty. So everything, just to look at your couch, look at your shoes, look at especially the people, look at the fact that you have limbs, that you have a brain, that you're alive, that you're well, it's all grace. It's all grace.
It's perspective that it's interesting that sometimes maybe it's a deliberate thing we have to do, but I notice it in myself too. Like recently I went to Budapest for the workshop, right?
Yeah.
And I had delays, flights. It took about 48 hours to get it to Budapest. I had to stay overnight in Amsterdam because of the delayed flights, because of snow. And everyone's texting me. My family, the workshop staff in Budapest are like, are you okay? You must be so tired and stressed. And I thought about it and I was like, this is the funnest I've ever had in a long time. Being alone in an airport. Why is that? Because I know what it's like to be with 3 jet-lagged kids overnight for hours and hours and hours in an airport.
Basically, they turn into terrorists.
Yes. So they're the terrorists at the airports.
Yeah.
They're the ones we should look out for. And I just realized like this all perspective, because I've experienced the worst thing I could imagine in an airport, and this is just a vacation. Like I'm loving this. And then it's like you were talking about sickness, right? Every time sometimes I travel, especially going to Korea for some reason, when I come home, I usually have a flu for like a week. And recently I was sick for a few days with the flu, and like Hito is like, are you okay? My mom's worried about me. And I was like, this is amazing compared to everyone in our family being sick, over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, temperatures with all the kids, people throwing up all night. This is fantastic. It's just me sick, and that's just perspective. And I don't know why I have that. It's not really a deliberate thing. It's default, Even Hito has this thing where her threshold of stress and difficulty was STF, Korea. She went to STF in Korea, and just the endless kyungbaes and early mornings and fundraising all day, that's her reference point for really hard. So anytime, like even with kids, to be honest, giving birth to 3 children, she will still say like, no, STF was a lot harder, right? And I'm like, damn, that's so interesting, Yeah, reference points.
Word to the wise for anybody about to enter a program here. Let's go. No, perspective is massive because my sense is that humanity's sprinting so fast in one direction that we haven't stopped to gain perspective on where we're at. So a lot of people hold the view that, our world is running out of control. And if you listen to certain kind of voices in our world, you can come to the conclusion that this is the most difficult time in history. But in all honesty, we have every resource at our disposal to solve any of our problems. The only thing that's getting in the way of that is our own emotional dysfunction and spiritual dysfunction that we're working on. We are, and if you're a part of High Noon, then you're part of the solution. Because one thing, I was physically having like stomach issues last week. So I went to a pharmacy. They have all these little pharmacies here, just family run, really cute. They didn't speak any English. Okay, I walked up to them. They were eating dinner on the floor of their own shop. They were having soup. It was adorable. It was a husband and wife. I went up to them and I whipped out my phone. I took out Google Translate, which is my favorite app right now in the world because it gives me a voice. I told them exactly what I'm struggling with, what I needed, showed it to her. She whipped out her phone and she had Google Translate, and we started to connect at a very high level thanks to the internet and technology. And I was like, this is unbelievable. I have a voice now in a country where I don't speak the language and we can be understood. And at a certain point, she was saying something really elaborate, and I looked at the husband and he and I just laughed because we just acknowledged the fact that we're in this wild era when I'm some foreigner in this land and we were just having this great conversation, right? They're talking into our phones and our phones talking to us. So we have these abilities, but again, that my phone saved my physical health, right? Because of this technology. That very same technology I can use to destroy my body, right? But I used it to heal my body. So perspective is massive. To appreciate the technology that we have and use it according to your ideals. We're going to talk about that today. Is really important, but it can only happen. Otherwise, you're just like, oh, I hate my phones. Phones are evil. Why does the internet have to exist? All this stuff. And there have been people who have proactively tried to shut down the internet. Oh, it's just a fad, or we got to get rid of TikTok, or all these things can be used for good. Even TikTok, there's doctors who give sound advice. There's a lot of riffraff. 99% of it is garbage, but there are good use cases for every bit of technology. It's just perspective and how we use it. So let's get into ideals, Benji. Because we give a talk in our workshops. It's one of the few talks that I can say is a foundational talk for our worldview in High Noon, because I can see very clearly how dysfunctional most of our relationships are with our own ideals. So, and this is a religious person problem, but it's also kind of everybody. It's like you want something for your life, but maybe you feel like you don't deserve it, or maybe you feel like you should live a certain way, but your heart doesn't want to. And so you blame the thing. Like in terms of religion, there's a lot of people that say, oh, religion is so judgmental and all this. I just want to live. I just want to be me. There's too many rules and all this. And it doesn't mean that religion or these beliefs are necessarily wrong at all. Maybe it's just you've never bought into them because you haven't done that labor, or you don't understand the rules, or whatever. There's a lot that needs unpacking, instead of just saying just believe or just don't believe. There's a lot that goes into understanding your ideals. And so we bring this up in High Noon because with the blessing, it's a very big ideal. We're talking about getting wed to somebody for all of eternity to help to contribute to world peace. There's a lot in there. And if you're not up for it, it becomes a very heavy weight. Benji, you've worked in the BFD and the BFM subsequently for quite some time, and you know that a lot of people grapple with this because, like, whoa, eternity is a long time, and world peace is a big, heavy topic. Like, and what happens if I have a dysfunctional marriage? So for everybody out there who's in a blessing or a blessed family that's not ideal, then have you failed and now you just throw away your ideals? Or are the ideals wrong for being there? And why do we even strive for world peace? Let's just take care of ourselves. Like, there's so much unpacking that needs to be done in order for us to have a good relationship with our ideals so that they serve their purpose. Because the purpose of an ideal isn't to make you feel guilty, it's to bring out the best in you. So if it's not doing that, it could be your understanding of your ideals, it could be your ideals, and it could just be your participation in this relationship with your ideals. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Benji had an experience. I want to talk about your experience, because Benji and I are always taking care of other people, right? It's just something that we love to do, and it's also a byfunction of our roles here at High Noon. But every once in a while, we need to be taken care of, because life, we're taking on a lot, and sometimes it weighs heavy on us. So recently, Benji, you had an experience that we just talked about earlier today that I'd love for you to kind of unpack, just to let people in on that.
Yeah, it's true. We do mentor a lot of people every day. We're talking with folks about their emotional state, things they're going through, how to manage emotions and stresses and loneliness and all this stuff, which are normal, natural human emotions. And so for me, it was a few months ago, I was hit with the hardest overwhelm and stress that I've ever experienced. And for many things piling up on each other, responsibilities, things going on with the kids, responsibilities. We were in the process of buying a house. So it was all that stuff going into that was just a level of stress I'd never experienced before. And so it came to the point where I was driving, thinking about this, and then my breathing became very shallow. like when you're really just overwhelmed. It's like it's hard
I
to
know it
breathe. It's
very
harder to
well.
breathe. You do. Okay.
Overwhelm is my
It's not like
first cousin.
it's not a pleasant feeling. It's a physiological response to emotions.
Yeah.
And I recognized that, and I was like, something's going on, because I just stopped breathing for a good 10 seconds. I was like, I've never experienced it. I don't know if it's a panic attack, anxiety. I don't want to label it because I don't know what it was. But I stopped breathing, and I was like, I got to stop. So I stopped the car, pulled over side of the road, and I just sat like by the wheel of my car and just like put my hands in my face, and I was like holding my chest, and I was like, what is going on with me? I don't know what's going on. And so, because I've experienced types of stress before, not to this level, but I've experienced stress before and frustration. And so I knew I needed to chill, and I needed to get some air in my lungs, first of all. So I stood up and I just forced my lungs. I was like I just forced my lungs to expand. And then actually in that moment, I identified that this is the moment where I can make a decision to isolate or to connect. Like, this is it. I'm feeling an emotion, which is normal, natural, God-given emotion, stress. Sure. This is the moment that people struggle. And I could go to my phone. I thought about it for a second, just like go to YouTube and squash it. Just squash this feeling and ignore it. Just ignore it. Numb myself. And then I was like, well, I know better than that, right? This is what I teach every day. Like, literally every day I'm teaching this stuff. And so I was like, all right. So I took my phone out and I texted my dad.
Your
which
phone?
Is what you said, how to use technology to win. I texted my dad and I said, Dad, can we talk? And he said, call me. Immediately he's like, call me. And so I called him and I dumped everything on him like a good son. Just go to him in times of difficulty, like a toilet, flush a toilet, which I'm sure he appreciates very much. And then I just kind of shared everything for like 15 minutes and everything I was feeling. And then he just listens. He's like this stoic Japanese man, if you can imagine the illustration of it, just the Japanese dad. He's not going to react strongly, or he's just like, listen. And then he says the thing that he always says when I talk with him. He says, Benji, I'm 100% sure you will figure it out. Like that. That's what he says. And he says it in a way that I know he means it, and not in a way that I think he's trying to make me feel better or just say something because he doesn't know what to say. Sometimes dads do that.
There, son.
He says it like, yeah, I'm 100% sure you'll be okay. You'll figure it out. Like that. And I got really emotional the next day, actually, thinking about it. I was very emotional thinking about this conversation, even though it was kind of short, and he didn't say much. And the reason I was emotional is, number one, because I realized that most men don't have a father that would sit with them and listen and say that to them. I know that most men wouldn't go to their father in their hardest times. In fact, most men would do everything that they can to run away from their father. A lot of men would. And to have a father that I can go to and want to go to in times of trouble, I was grateful for as a privilege to have that. And the second thing I was emotional about is I realized that this is how I feel like God feels about all of us. Even though maybe we don't all have people like that in our lives, but we all have God. And God is like a parent that will listen to you and look at you and be like, I know it's hard. Like, I get it. I've been through this. Like, I've been through more than you can imagine. You'll be okay. Like that. And
for sure,
it just brings a lot of like peace of mind to me. And it was like instantly the emotions that were unpleasant were dealt with, and they kind of vanished or evaporated to the point where I was like, oh, I could have went down this route, used my phone for destructive things, but I used it for, I'm gonna call my dad in the moment. And so I think the trap many people fall in, especially in the high noon world, is they get stuck when they label the emotion as bad. They say, I'm stressed, so it's wrong. I'm bored, and it's wrong. How can I not be bored? So they start filling their lives with more stuff. I'm just going to play more video games so that I'm not triggered to watch porn. That's what people do. It's like, it's late into the night. I'm bored. I'm just going to play video games until I fall asleep.
Sure.
Replace one addiction with another. And so, but I'm wise enough to know, like, this is not a bad emotion. This is a natural culmination of life experiences that I've never experienced before. And it's reasonable that I've never had this amount of stress, and I don't yet know how to bench press this amount of weight. I haven't learned that skill yet. And through this experience is like, I can bench press a little more in terms of stress, overwhelm, dealing with life. And now I'm in a place where I'm like a 300-pound bench presser, I think, something around there, metaphorically speaking. Yeah, that was the big takeaway, is that it's not a emotion I want to label as bad or evil or wrong. It's just like, this is an emotion, and how am I going to respond to this? How am I going to use this feeling to destroy myself or to direct it, to change, to grow, and to develop myself?
Hey, just a quick interruption to tell you about the 40-day High Noon Challenge. If you're trying to find a way to start living a high noon life today with no shadows and create a radiant blessing, then this simple challenge is for you. We will send you daily lessons from our team that will keep you motivated on your journey. It's totally free, guys, and you'll get constant content directly to you. Just sign up today at highnoon.org/challenge.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, it's very true that very few people have that resource. So it is great to talk to God. And it's a massive part of the process. But when somebody's really emotional, I find that it's really hard for myself and for a lot of people to jump from a frenetic state, like a really intense negative emotion or powerful emotion, to resolving it through prayer. For me, prayer is a much more valuable resource for reflecting and understanding stuff and communicating after the dust has settled a little bit. And while I'm in the emotion, I typically need to plug my nervous system into something calmer. Because like you're experiencing, and I'm sure everybody out there has experienced overwhelm, it's like your body you have too many inputs. There's too much information coming into your body that it can't process it. So you stop breathing well, you have short breaths. And what's happening is your brain is moving too fast. It's causing you to breathe faster. And it starts to freak out your body. Your body's like, oh my God, we must be in trouble. So that sends signals back up to your brain that something bad is happening. And now you create this cycle where you start to think of worse things. Your body starts freaking out more. And now you're panicking. This is a panic attack. And there's such value in if you could touch somebody in that moment who's incredibly calm and stable in that calmness, your nervous system will start to turn into their nervous system. It'll regulate, like their heartbeat will regulate your heartbeat, because it's just like, okay, shh. You don't even have to say anything, but just touching them is like, shh. And if you don't have that, talking to somebody like your dad that you did, who is in that calm state, can help to regulate you. It calms your mind down a little bit because you're getting it all out. It's just running around in circles and you're letting those things run out. Like a bunch of monkeys in your brain running around wreaking havoc. You let them run. And then your dad, he was in a good state to hear it, take it all, and then it just calms you down. But it also then gives you an opportunity to catch up with yourself and to breathe, and that calms your body down. And so it's like this very cathartic process. So to have that in terms of like ideals, the 5 virtues, like I'm seeing everything through the 5 virtues more now. Like you needed accountability for your emotions in that time. You needed to experience grace through accountability so you could go back to being in integrity with the man that you want to be, right? So accountability is you reached out to your dad and said, Dad, I'm feeling overwhelmed. That's accountability at a very beautiful, natural level. Your dad offers you the experience of grace. Hey, it's going to be okay. And he means it. You feel that he means it. And now you're back to the man that you want to be. That's integrity. So this cycle is like, so natural. And I think when we explain the 5 virtues, it's usually through pornography, addiction, or whatever. But this is just day-to-day 5 virtue practice. to help you live according to your ideals.
Yeah, and just make a pin in relation to porn. That's when people go to porn, is when they're feeling these emotions and they have a decision to make.
Yeah.
Do I connect? Do I isolate? And so the way to use accountability partners, as you were saying, as I did, is way before it becomes an issue. It's like as soon as you notice the emotions flare up and the tendencies, usually when I'm stressed or bored or lonely, that's where I go to porn or masturbation. That's where you address it. That's when you call your accountability partner before you jump off a cliff. But usually people do is they drive to the edge of a cliff, climb the ladder, open the door to the roof, and they get on the edge, and then they call their accountability partners. Hey, I'm about to jump off a cliff. Or they already do, and they're on the way down, It's like, it's way too late by then.
I love the fact that your cliff has a roof.
I
know
that imagery is not. That's great.
It just felt like it was a Looney Tunes analogy where somebody walks into a mountain and climbs up the stairs inside the mountain. But I get you.
Bugs Bunny. Yeah, I got you.
No, because the metaphorical cliff that you're talking about is, hey, I haven't taken care of myself up until the point where I'm really about to bust. Can you fix me? And it's like the accountability partner you can plug into some of them when you're in that state, but you actually, when you're in that level of agitation, let's say you're really on the brink of watching porn, there's the majority of you does not want to hear what that person has to say. You're doing it out of some semblance that your conscience has some say, like they have 1% share in this decision that's being made. But typically when you've gone that far, you've already kind of made the decision subconsciously that you're going to do this. So I think that's what Benji's saying is like before you've made that decision. So in the case of porn, before you're loading the website and you've typed the name of the website in and you're about to press enter, before all that, it's like, oh, I'm starting to feel really angry. That's when you reach out. Before the anger turns into scrolling, and before the scrolling turns into whatever the next phase is, and before all this, it's learning about your emotions and saying, wow, I need to talk to somebody about this emotion. Because again, and we're going to get into this next week with Gene Honeycutt, it's that emotion is trying to tell you something, actually. Here's the thing. It's not about not watching porn. Like, that's a good start. It's a fantastic start. And for most of you, it's a life-changing start, right? But even if you don't reach out and watch porn, it's like, well, why are you so angry right now? Let's say you have a habit of fighting with somebody in your life, and every time you get into a conversation, you just get so frustrated, you don't know what to do, and you start scrolling. This is really good information. Why does that person make you so angry? What is it about them? What is it about your understanding of them? It's like, to understand yourself at that level, that's the gift that we're trying to offer you by doing this work. Because a person who knows themselves can control their destiny. And a person who doesn't is controlled by their unconscious, like, lower self that just will guide you towards porn because you just don't know what's going on, right? It's a little kid who's really scared. I know some little kids, and I'm not going to say that they're one of my sons because I don't want to call them out, who has this crazy unnatural fear of the dark. And even yesterday, this random kid who happened to live in my house, who may or may not be my son, we were all in the living room, which is connected to the kitchen. You can see it. The living room was well lit. Kitchen was dark. He just went to go wash his hands. And when he came back, he started screaming and running into the room, right? And it's this complete irrational fear that I was like, bro, what's going on with that? That's worth unpacking. Because if, it's worth him understanding. Like, what do you actually, what do you think is going to happen? We're right here, right? But we have a little kid inside of us that knows that we should call our boss, that knows we should talk to our parents, that knows we should talk to our spouse, that has some difficult thing to do, knows we should do our homework. And that homework is like the darkness that we want to run away screaming from because it scares us for some reason. Understand that, and you can understand yourself. Now you're making some great decisions. you cannot make good decisions if you don't have the information to make good decisions. That information is understanding your emotional self, right? So
Yep.
did you understand your at what point did you understand your overwhelm in this particular situation? Like, did it take, you talked to your dad and that helped to calm you down, but the next day you felt a huge surge of emotion? Did you understand your overwhelm more after that? Or like, what did it take for you to understand what was causing this overwhelm?
I think when I was in a state of overwhelm and stress, it was feeling out of alignment with, I want to say, grace and God's love. According to principally speaking, the way we're supposed to live is that we're in a constant state of feeling God. And I believe it is the greatest tragedy in history is that we just don't feel that. And when we tap into that grace, it's like we can see ourselves clearly. Because without it, we are deprived of a single thing that is arguably the most important thing in life. If you consider spirit world and what we breathe there, it's like, are we experiencing connection, right? And when we're lacking that ingredient, everything's painful. Every little touch is like we're sunburnt constantly, and everything is painful. Every little tap. And I think I was just in a place where I was sunburnt. I was not receiving grace or connection much from people at that point. I've gone probably a while without talking to my dad and not really practicing the 5 virtues of being honest about myself and truthful to myself and having courage. And so when you go long enough without it, you start to question if you're even worthy of love. You start to question if you're worthy of that grace, if God is even real, God loves you. We know intellectually, but do we feel it? It's a different thing. Everybody knows intellectually. Do you feel
so
it?
Resonance, you're talking about resonance, because when you're really in the same vibration as God, it resonates in like how you feel, right? There's like and I hate using this terminology, to be honest, like even when I hear other people using vibrations and resonance, but a really practical thing that I just learned this week. So, we're living in Vietnam, right? And in our neighborhood, we have a bunch of rats that are just like I've seen one since we've been recording our podcast through my window. It's daytime. And they're just really arrogant. Like, I swear to God, they wear top hats and they smoke cigarettes. They're just very unabashed about being a rat. Typically, rats try to be ratty in the dark. Out here, they're just walking around. They're strutting. They have fashionable clothing, like they're just everywhere. And so my wife, we were watching a movie on our couch. Shout out to the couch. Last weekend, we have movie night. And my wife was like, oh, I just saw a rat poke its little head up. So it walked up the stairs in our house. And I was like, oh, hell no. So I got really uppity about this. And I started doing research because I just had this inclination. Wow. I had an inclination that there's a resonance, a frequency that rats don't like, and there's probably some type of product. So I did research, and we bought this thing that we just plugged in yesterday. And what it does is it vibrates a frequency that makes mosquitoes, rats, bats, all varieties of kind of lower flies. It makes their nervous system so uncomfortable that they vacate the space. And it has like a huge range, like the entire floor. And so we plugged it in yesterday, and I was like very skeptical, but it had a lot of reviews on the site that we bought it. So we bought it, and then later in the day I was like, is it working? And my wife is like, we have no what are they, fruit flies, because we have a bunch of fruits out here and we always have fruit flies, and like they all left. And we noticed all of the mosquitoes left our house. And it's a tall house, and they have a lot. We didn't see any. And I was like, oh my God, there's a actual frequency that makes them agitated, so they don't want to be there. There's something about their nervous system that says, oh, this is not our place. We do not belong here, and they leave. We get into that frequency. It's a frequency of dissonance through social media. It's been proven. It makes you agitated. It's very chaotic. When we hang out with the wrong people, when we have the wrong thoughts, it agitates us and it messes with our nervous system, and we want to escape. Just like those mosquitoes wanted to escape our house, and they did. They ran away. we want to run away from our life when we're in a bad frequency. And this is like a real thing, guys. And but for us, it's emotional and spiritual as well. And that frequency that Benji was talking about is he was in a frequency of discord and chaos by focusing his energy and his emotion on all of the problems, and those problems grew and grew until it threw him way off balance to where his body started to believe that it was dying. That's what a panic attack is. Your body thinks that it's dying. Your heart rate just skyrockets because it's like, here we go, this is it, right? We're gonna die. So this all happens at an emotional level. And if you can see yourself, oh man, I'm starting to go offline here. I'm starting to freak out. I'm starting to get angry. I'm starting to get depressed. These are all frequencies. You got to change the channel and learn how to vibrate at the frequency of God, which you have to find your way. Hunduke for a lot of people rebalances them. For me, I cannot read Hunduke when I'm in a bad state because it's just going into my brain that's just super angry or confused or whatever. So I have to breathe, ideally get into nature, calm myself down, and then pray about it. I have to first calm myself and then pray about it. So everybody has their own route, and you have to figure this out. But for Benji, a huge part of it was connecting to his papa. And that, how beautiful is that? How natural is that? And for little kids, they're meant to actually hug their parents, and their parents' heart rate is supposed to regulate their kid's heart so that they feel everything's going to be okay because my mommy's touching me or my daddy's touching me. Like, so if you can get that from God, great. There's just so many ways of getting there. Do you know what I mean? And it's really a matter of frequency.
Yeah, I do. And when I came out of that ordeal for the first time in my life, I felt like I just saw clearly like what was going on. I felt grace, frequency of God and love. And then it was like, oh, that's what was going on. You know, it just felt like I was in a jungle and I was lost. And then all I had to do was take a step out of the jungle. And then I'm like, why was I even in the jungle in the first place? It's stupid, right? It's like, all I have to do is go this way and take this road. And then I just want to make a clarifying point. I think that some people listening will take the wrong conclusion and say that, oh, it's good because Benji has somebody to talk to. He has a father that would listen. That's the wrong conclusion here. I'll say that for two reasons. Number one, my relationship with my father developed over years. All right. He's not flawless. He is not a great, well, I don't want to say that. He's not a perfect dad, right? He is the dad that he is. He is the dad that he is. And I deliberately was like, when I first started like trying to develop my relationship with my dad, I had all these reasons why, oh, he's Japanese. He doesn't, have good give and take. He's not, whatever. And then I was like, screw that. Like, those are all stories. I'm going to make the relationship with my dad that I want. And I just decided that. I'm going to make it what I want. And then I did that every week. I met with him. In the beginning, it was like weird to like call him and be like, hey, can we talk? It's not something that I did right with him. But I made this relationship. I'm just saying that because you can do this with anybody. Not parent, uncle figure, aunt figure, pastor, whoever. You can develop a relationship where you have give and take, where you just feel love with each other. Absolutely. And I also want to point to the fact that even if you do have terrible parents, or you think you do, whatever, your perception is that your parents don't love you and you can't talk to them about stuff. Let's say that for a second. Then find someone else. Like, God gave us relationships so that we can feel God through them. God gave us every realm of heart so we can experience God in different ways. That's why we have people. Join a freaking High Noon program, for goodness sake. That's what we're doing. We're helping you guys practice the 5 virtues every week in our groups.
And we give mentors, right? For that very reason.
Mentor. You can literally have calls with them and text them every day how you're doing. Leave voice messages. Like, I'm saying this because the solution for everyone's difficulty is so stupid simple. It's like widen your support system and deepen your support system. Widen meaning more people, and deepening meaning deeper relationships with those people. And if you do that, it's really as simple as tapping into the relationships we already have. You don't have to find like a course online of like how to make good relationships. Like, just tap the relationships you have. You have people. Everyone does.
Sure.
And if you don't have anyone, do what Andrew does and just go pray and meditate, and he'll solve all your problems.
No, that calms you down. So
things to do. There's a billion better things. Yeah.
An important thing to understand in terms of the framework of when you're feeling a strong emotion, when it is illegal to drink and drive, because when you are drunk or when you've been drinking, you lose your motor skills. You can't function. Your reaction time is way off. You can't see straight. Everything's kind of messed up. You're discombobulated. They've found that the exact same thing is true when you're heavily emotional, especially strong emotions like anger. You cannot think straight. The reason being, all of the blood that should be in your brain is now in your heart, because your heart is perceiving this threat as an emergency, and it has allocated the fight or flight response, not the think response, not thinking logically. So you're not thinking when you're strongly emotional. So you need, like, if you're drinking, then what do you need? You need a designated driver, right? And in this case, if you're emotioning, you need an emotional driver, somebody that you can plug into that's not steeped in that emotion, so that you can think logically through them and rebalance yourself through them. This is just basic life stuff that we don't have in place because we're living very much out of balance with nature. So you need somebody to talk to when you are emotional as much as possible, because they will be able to gain the perspective that you've lost since you've been stuck in that emotion. You're drunk on that emotion. You cannot make good decisions while you're in that emotion. That's why for me, like, I really do try, if I'm noticing a pattern of some emotion, that I do dissipate that through breath work, through regulating, and I don't make any decisions, because if I'm really angry, I'm going to say something stupid. I'm going to do something regrettable. So before making any life decisions while I'm in that state, I stop being in that state first, and then I make decisions. And reaching out to somebody to give you their perspective of the scenario really, really helps, especially somebody that you trust and love. So yeah, it really is drinking and driving, and it's the same thing as emotioning and living. Like, you need a designated person to help you while you're drunk on that emotion, and you're not making good decisions while you're super depressed or super angry or anxious. Think about that. Anxiety is most of our default states these days because of the way the world is, or the way we perceive it to be. And we're making bad decisions. That's just creating more anxiety. And now we have politicians and we have teachers and we have all these people who are making decisions based on anxiety. So we have now an anxious culture. So the only way to unplug from that is to first unplug from that anxiety. Then you'll make rational decisions, good decisions that will make your life better instead of worse. And you can contribute to the betterment of this world.
Dang, bro.
So we're on that path. High Noon will help you if you're up for it. It's all about those 5 virtues and living in alignment with your ideals. I would say that your ideals are like your North Star goal, and those 5 virtues are like the kind of landmarks that help you kind of move forward. Because if you go off track, like Benjy, he started to go off track. His body paid the price. He had an anxiety attack. His talk to his dad goes right back on track.
I was drunk and driving.
He's drunk on anxiety and overwhelm, and he pulled over. You said you pulled over, right? Because you can't drive while you're freaking out and having a panic attack. So the metaphor is very apt. Anyway, guys, end of the thing, we keep on saying, guys and gals, I want to be inclusive here. Please understand that nothing is resolved by yourself. Everything is done together with God, together with your higher self, and together with other people. That's what we're leading all people back to. And so please reach out to somebody. If you really don't have parents that you can talk to, reach out to an aunt or an uncle in your community, somebody that you know and trust. And if you really don't have them, reach out to us, and we're happy to talk to you. And we will always get back to you.
Or the last resort for people. No.
We should be, but we're happy to do it if you really don't have anything else. But ideally, we're not a sustainable option. Ideally, it's somebody naturally who's in your life. That's where the richness lies.
We can show you how to access people in your life. I think that's what we do in our programs. We teach you that it's possible and give you the tools to utilize the 5 virtues within the life and the people around you. So I think it should be a first option. Like everyone should just be like, yeah, high noon, cool, let's do it. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to rank options. We are an option. Let us be one of your options. And we're always happy to be wherever on the list you want to put us. We're happy to be there. We like being on lists, just not hate lists. You can take us off those. But anyway, I think that's about it for today. Well, I would like to unpack this your relationship with your ideal more. I think there's so much there, and so we will revisit it at some point. But thanks for sharing with us, Benjy, for getting vulnerable with us, and thanks everybody for listening. And we will see you when we see you. Peace.
Bye.
Hey, did you know that our team wants to do more events? Well, if you want to bring the High Noon message to your community or group, then let us know and we'll try to work something out. There's a simple application that you can fill out right now at highnoon.org/invite. And one of our team members will get back to you to see what's possible. That's highnoon.org/invite. All right, see you in the next episode.